Hey everyone, so welcome to another video. In the last live stream, basically I was creating this app, Spotify Music Selector, in which people in my chat can join a session and then we can vote on certain songs that we want to listen or something like that. But I couldn't complete that in the stream, so here I am trying to build the same app. Like I have basically built the app, but I'll try to build it back again so that you guys can know how this app is built. I'll push the code to GitHub as well for you guys to tweak around, add features and whatnot. So let me show you how this app basically works. You write the name of the session over here. I can just write test session. So this will create a session for me. What I can actually do is I can take this URL link. I can just do like this, I guess. And yeah, this is a private window, so I can just open one here. So basically now I'll be joining the same session. Now I can search for some song over here, which should reflect in the other one. So we can treat this one as the portal the user one is using, and this one can be portal that a user two is using. So if I write some song over here, let's say Danza Kuduro, I don't know the spelling, but I hope, yeah, it gave me the song. If I click on add, I hope there should be some real, yeah, there is a 5 second real time polling. So we poll for the song every 5 seconds. So over here, let's say I can either vote on it or I can add my own other song. So let me go ahead and add another one of my song. I can add, let's say, boom or something. Yeah, I added my own song, right? So this will be added and let's wait for some time. Yeah, this is here and it's reflecting in real time over here also. Let's check for the voting logic. If I vote on it, okay, so yeah, for voting I have a polling now. I can add a new song, but only other people can vote on it. Now if I go ahead and remove this song, or basically if I, me being the user, if I remove this song, now the same song can't be added for the next, let's say, 20 minutes. So that is the thing. If I try to add it again, yeah, song is on cooldown, can't be added again for 20 minutes. So we only remove the song when um we are done with that song and we can't add it again in till the next 20 minutes. Okay, now there are a couple of things remaining in this. Basically me having a super user, or basically whoever creates the link should be the super user and nobody else should be allowed to remove a song or something. But yeah, those feature has have to come like as we go. But this is like the basic feature sort of thing. If I can vote on this one, I voted on this one. Let me try joining the same link using another one of my private window. Let's see if this counts as a new user. I can vote on this one. Yeah, let me just open one more new private window and let me just vote from here. I just want it to go up. If I vote on it, yeah, it refreshed and then it goes up. So there are some flaws which I'll try to fix. Maybe once I've pushed on the code, or maybe you guys can take that and fix that. But that's overall the context of this project, and we can get started. I'll just close off the windows. I'll just make it full screen and let's discuss the stack that we have. So obviously this code will require a couple of pages. We just saw the pages. This is the home screen. Uh, and then we have another one of this, which is like our session screen or something, right? So there are two screens for this. And what sort of stack that we're going to use is Next.js. So we're going to use Next.js for the front end of it and also for the back end of it. So if you're like wondering how to use Next.js for both of these things, this is the video for you. And yeah, that's it. So let's go over here. Let's clear the terminal. Let's go back. Let's create a folder called Spotify Music Collector SMS for project 3D SMSP. And then over here, actually, I should be going back. I will just remove SMSP. I'll I'll let React create it. I'm using NPS here. So latest, and let's SMSP, TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind, SRC directory. I'll want it. App router, turbopack, alias. Yes, yes. Okay. So by the time this is getting created, let's see how our whole stack should be there. So one thing is from the home screen, when we'll try to move on to this session screen, we want to transfer certain data and we want to create certain data. So I think the folder structure that I'm thinking is basically src, which will have slash API, which will have slash session, which will have a basic file called route.ts, and then we'll have a placeholder within here which is session ID, which is like once you join a particular session. So over here we'll have songs, and inside it we'll have a route.ts, and there will be one for vote. Over here we'll have route.ts. So this is the backend sort of structure. Now since we are following this file based routing, so the good thing is that we don't have to worry about these individual files, and like we don't have to define the whole route. Basically, the folder structure will take care of our backend routing system. For the front end, I think we'll have just one home page. So that should be a page.tsx in the home directory, and then we'll have one in session slash session ID, and that should be having one page.tsx. So these two pages and this over here should be enough for the whole project. And then, okay, we also need some Spotify based routing. So that we can do over here after API. Maybe we can do a Spotify and just create one route.ts over here. So this is the backend sort of route, and this is pretty much the front end based route. Just delete this and get front end routing, and this one is gonna be backend routing. Let me just remove this Next.js as well from here. So this is gonna be the whole project, and with that let's see if our terminal is done or not. Project, yeah, project is there, XMSP, and let's start the code terminal in this. Let me also try running the whole project and seeing if we can see the project over here. Where is that gone? Yeah, we have our Next.js over here. Let me remove the boilerplate code. Actually, I don't need to remove a lot of these things. I can just do this and hey there, so that I get a good enough app. Yep. I'll try to use Copilot for the front end of it, but before that, let me just create a .http file and start by creating some API structure. So I'll create a new folder API. I'll create a new folder called session, and then I'll create actually a new file inside it, route.ts. So the session is gonna have a route.ts file, and so is like, yeah. So this particular session, actually I'll keep sessions and route.ts. Before we start creating the backend, let's create a simple enough route so that actually let's create a simple enough route so that we can click here to launch session, right? And I can just give it on click of handle session something. I can just create here handle session, and I can maybe import router, import use router from next slash navigation, I think navigation, And over here I can just do constant router equals to use router, and in the handle session I can just do router dot push, and I can just do session slash abc. And to create this I can just create a new folder here, session, and then session can have a new folder called session id, which can in turn have a new file on space.tsx. I'll explain what this does. Export default function session page, and then we can just return a new div tag saying hey there in session. Actually, I can just take a session ID also. So what I can do is import use params from next slash. Where do we bring this from? Use params is next slash navigation. And over here, I can just do constant params equals to use params, and then constant session ID can be params dot session ID. Okay, so I know this whole thing can be a pretty overloading thing for you guys. Use router is not there. Client component. Okay, so since this is a client component, I can just write use client over here. Yeah, now this works. Okay, so is there a button over here? No. Let me just put this inside the bracket and not remove this and not remove this, and actually move this inside over here. Yeah, this works now. Yeah. Click here to launch a new session. The moment I click on this, this brings me to session slash ABC, which is not found apparently. Session slash ABC is not found because inside my app, I have a session folder, session ID, and it does have a page.tsx. Let me just use client here also so that I can brainstorm this thing. Session is, so this API should be within app, and yeah, I think this is the reason. Let me just go back, try to click it back again. No, app should have a API, and then API should have session, and then oh, this session should be inside app. My bad. This session was, oh no, what did I do? This session should be inside app. Yeah. So earlier this app did not contain this. I accidentally created the folder outside, but now it works. Okay. Let me explain this a little bit to you guys. So what's happening here is basically there's a concept called file-based routing. So how that works is this is your SRC folder, or basically the same thing that I explained over here. So this is your SRC folder, right? And then that SRC folder has a app folder. So this SRC folder will have a nested folder. Come on, let me click you. Yeah, app folder. Now this app folder is considered as the root directory, and this translates to the slash endpoint. So this app is slash endpoint. So the page.tsx, which is under this app folder, will serve as that slash routes, the content of that slash route. Now, what happens is any nested folders that you create over here. So over here, let's say you created the sessions slash session ID. This will work as a nested route. So the way it will work is slash, then session, then this is a placeholder. So now this can be anything. Session ID can be like session slash ABC. It can be session slash 123. So the internally the router or the next slash navigation that takes care of how it is handling this, but that's how it works. So slash session session ID, it translates to this particular URL. So what is happening is once we click on this button, it tries to push this session slash abc over here. What will happen if I change the endpoint? So if I go over here inside this page file, I make it 123. Now this time if I click here, see, okay, I think I forgot saving. Let me refresh it. Yeah, and now click it. So 123. So that particular change is reflected on that page as well. And since I've changed my placeholder from here, the other placeholder would also change. So this is a basic sort of application in which you click a button and then you go into the different side. I'll make a minimal portion of it. We'll try to make it look a little bit better later on. I'll try to uh, get done with the transfer of data and everything like that, and then I'll focus on back to this. So what we have to do here is we have to create at least a button or input field. So this can be type, and then on change can be there, which takes uh, actually a state component, but for now let's just console log and e dot event dot sorry e dot target dot value, and over here let's try e, and let's go on from there. I think, yeah, so I think, yeah, let's go over here, let's go back, let's click. So this is the text box. If I inspect the element in console, anything that I write should be coming here, but it is not. Let me try refreshing it. I think it has something to do with preventing defaults, but we'll try to fix it over constant handle change or something. I think it has something with e dot prevent default, so e can be here, and then e dot prevent defaults, and then console log e dot target dot value, and over here I can just go over here and will change, and then I can, oh, I can give it here. If I refresh it, yeah, prevent default is undefined. It might be prevent default. I'm a little bit rusty. uh, why is it not printing? Okay, value equals to uh, session name, and let me just go here and just make it let me make this as set session name, and then e dot target dot value, and let me import state. So import use state from next slash, actually you can just import it from React and just create one over here, constant session name, that session name equals to use state, and then it can be a string, and then we can start with empty string. So, and console log, I can just console log session name. Let's see if this works or not. Actually this will never get called, but let's see. I think with this and over here I can just make this, I can make this whole thing up here, and I can just do session slash and then session, actually session name. Let's see this. I can just launch it. Yeah. Okay, so time to explain a little bit. I'm sorry, I got carried away a little bit. So what's happening here is basically I created the home page. Now this is a home page. Let me zoom it a little bit for you guys. Let me close this so that you guys can see. Okay, so what's happening here is basically in SRC we have app which will act as our root directory. Now in app we are having session which is acting as our second page which we are having, which basically the task of this page right now is to take the ID which is coming as URL over here and display it. So simple as that, right? What's happening in the main pages, we have a router which takes care of pushing a new URL on the stack. So this works as a stack of pages. So when you do router.push, it pushes a new URL on top of the old URL. So that is how it is working. Now we are having session name and set session name. This is a state variable. So this is sort of a hook which we are using. Now at any moment, whenever the page will render, it will store a session name in there. We initialize it with an empty string, and whenever we change the input variable, we set this session name as this particular value, right? So basically every time we type a different character, we change the session name. Session name at any point contains the content whatever we are typing into this box. I'm sorry, this box, and then at the end state, when we click this button, it actually tries and pushes the whole stack and opens a new page for us. So this is basically us navigating amongst pages. So if I do ASD and I launch it, well, we are in the new session. So this is basic routing between the client side pages. We are not hitting any APIs. We are doing nothing over here, right? Let's talk a little bit on how we can design this API. So the data will flow when we'll go from home screen to session screen. What will happen as soon as we click the button? As soon as we click that button of creating that session, we want to create certain details or basically a global store for that session. Now that global store means we want to record some details, right? So now obviously those details need to exist between anyone who is trying to open this session, right? There are a couple of options for how we can store those details. Options are basically, one will be like we store that in a file which we keep in this directory somewhere. We create a new file named, let's say, data.json. We try storing the data inside it. We pick up the value from it later on, but no, that will be pretty bad thing to do, since like if the data is huge, we'll be taking up a lot of memory or something. Also, like that might not be an issue, but the moment we try to redeploy our app, the old data will be lost, right? So that is one, although we can totally use it because we are not making it that of a robust app, but I'm just trying to list you down the drawbacks. uh okay, so the other way will be to keep that in memory, which is like, as long as the app does not restart, we have our data. If the app restarts, we lose our data, right? And the third thing is a bit more robust one, which is using something like Redis to store the values and then always call that for polling and everything. So the number of Redis call will be a lot because we have used a polling based system. So polling based system is like without caching layer. This is gonna take like a lot of uh, calls to Redis. So it's gonna cost us a lot. But since we wanted this application to be a simple one, I am thinking we might use in memory. Um, so for that, what we need to do is we need to create a global store. So how are we going to create a global store? Basically, we have our folders up here. What we can do is within src, we'll create a new file, which is known as library. Oh, bad. Lib. Right. Within src, we have this folder library, and inside this library, we'll create a information of sessions, which is like sessions.ts. Now this particular file will be our, this will be responsible for keeping the record of our sessions and information, like all the sessions in a sort of key value pair. I'll just show you how it will keep. So it will keep like session ID, and then it will keep like a bunch of data, or basically what it can do is like it can create a big metadata, and then within it it can create a couple of arrays, and then that could work, right? So that is what I am thinking that we create, because every particular instance of running app can have multiple sessions running. So we might need that. So let's go over here and let's declare a global variable. So this is basically a global class that we are declaring, which will stay like that for every sort of sessions. So this will have a session variable or sessions variable if I may, and it will contain, and actually it will contain a map which will actually have a string and then a payload, like the way I told over here. Oh, I removed it. Yeah, session ID, which is the string over here, and then couple of payloads. So inside the payload, we'll have ID, which is like string. Then we'll have name, which is like string. Then we'll have created at, which is the date. Then we'll have songs, which is like an array of songs. So every song that is there in that list, we want to keep that here. Also, even if a song is removed, we want to keep it here until we are past that 20-minute benchmark, right? So we'll do string over here, and then song name string, then artist, that will be string, then album, image actually, because the Spotify API gives us back the image. So votes can be number, and then added by can be string because that will be user ID, and added at can be date again, right? So this will be our songs, and then we'll need to keep the data of removed songs, which can be array, and then this will be like ID of string, basically the song ID that we need to have, and removed at will be date. And then one more thing that we need to keep is basically the user votes. So users are supposed to vote for songs, like if they like that or they want to delete that, I guess that functionality should be super users. But yeah, for now, anyone can delete it. I hope people don't realize that, because I'm going to stream it today and share the link with people. I hope they don't realize and they don't delete the songs. But anyways, so this will be string, and then it should be having user vote should be last vote time, and that can have a date, and then the song ID can have a string. So I think that is pretty much it. Either it will be this or it will be undefined. Yeah. So that's my whole model. So this model is what we're going to be using. And then we need to initialize this every time, like we start the instance of app. So export constant sessions equals to, either it will be global this actually dot sessions. If this is not there, then we create a new map. Actually, I'll copy everything from here up till here, and then I'll create a new map over here. That's it. So this would be there. And also, like, we can have a dev server and like production server running. And if it is like dev server, we can just do global this dot session equal to session. So we can just do if process.env.node environment equals to development, then we can just do global this dot sessions equal to sessions, right? Otherwise we can just, in production environment, we can clearly fit in redis or something. In development environment, we can just keep it in memory because we won't be testing out for long. So that's why keeping that in memory works as well. So this is our library.session file. Now there's one thing that we need to do is whenever we create this particular session, or basically when we go from this page to the other page, which is this one, we need to create a global data store, or basically we need to at least add this session ID into that store. Because now once we click, we create this session, we click here, we are launching a session. So we have this particular session ID created, we can have votes and all of that thing. We need to make sure that we have this recorded. So let's start by creating this API of session and in the routes. So over here, we need to create a couple of APIs. Like whenever this session gets called, we need to open this API up. So the way in which a server API is created in Next.js, we can clearly see it from the Next.js doc as well. I can just show you. It inherits something called nest response. Come on. actually response here. Yeah. So this is basically extended from web response API, and this comes from there, and we can import next response and next request in our code. So we can just do next response. I don't know why I don't have autocomplete, but I wish I had. Next slash server, and actually export default. Actually, we don't default anything. Export async function, and we create a post API in which the request is a form of next request. So okay, whenever we create a new session, we need a session name which will be coming as part of this URL parameter. This is going to be our session name. So we can just get that out. Constant name is equals to await request dot json. So that's where we get the name from. Now we need to do a couple of checks on that name. So if name dot trim, this basically checks if the name is not empty or it does not have all white spaces. Actually, empty check will be this, and trim will be white spaces. We do return next response, and there is a weird way of creating the error, which I learned in the stream the hard way. So it was like you come up here, you give error as session name is required, and then you give a comma, and then you give a status of, let's say, 400. Now this goes as an error in the API, otherwise it does not. So if this if statement is not, then we'll create a session ID which comes from UUID in TS. Let's see how that works. So UUID is this. So let me do this, and we can just do UUID. So we get the session ID from here. We create a new session, which can be id.session ID, the name.session name, and actually I need to create. So I'll open up sessions dot here, and I can just go back and I can just see created date as date. Oh, not date, new date, and I think it should be get time. No, it will be new date, and then I need songs as empty array, and then I can get removed songs as empty array as well, and user votes can be a new map because that's what we have it here. So session is there, but we are not giving it anywhere. Actually, we also need to import sessions from sessions from at the rate slash lib slash sessions. So at the rate import is there. So from this lib folder and session folder, we import sessions. Let me give it a couple of space. Actually over here, and over here session dot set session. Actually this sessions dot set session. One second. Set, and then we can have session ID and then session. So that will basically set up the whole session, and then we can return next response dot json, and then we can give it session ID. Let's try out this API in action, right? So actually just closing this and then opening this, and then over here dot http file, and then we can just do post of http not s. So local host 3000 dot session, right? Yeah, and then we do content type as application, I think, dot json, and then header. I think the payload goes here, which is name, and then ABC. Right, let me try sending out the request. It says 404 not found. Slash API slash sessions. My bad. Let's try it out. 500 internal error. So okay, the API is there, but there is some internal error because I need to see .http post request how this is made. I am pretty sure that I am making it. VS Code post request. I am pretty sure I'm making this wrong. Let me try and see this. Get is like this. Post content type, and then this names needs to be here. Maybe somewhere here. Thanks for learning. Let me try this out. Maybe this might give me. Oh, my bad. It can't resolve UUID. My bad, my bad. We need to install UUID. My bad. Here install UUID. Okay, it installed it. Let's run the server again. My bad. It was nothing to do with here, and it had everything to do with the. Okay, the session name is not defined. Let me just see the routes, and name is there. Session name should be actually name. Let's check it out again. Yeah, 200, it gave me a session ID, and let's see if I can go on to this session ID. Obviously I can. Like, it did create a new method, like this particular thing called session ID. Let's create a get route also, since we are obviously here. Over here we can just get all the session list from here. So array.from sessions dot get values, and then we can just do map of session, and then we can just take all the values as session.id, name is session dot name. What is this giving? Map of session dot. Okay, my bad, my bad. And this should be here, right? Name, and then created at as session dot created at, and then song count is equals to session dot songs dot length, right? So it can give this, and then we can just return next response dot json, and then we can give sessions session list, right? This will work. Let's try out with http over here. Let's create and http slash localhost 3000 API slash sessions. That's it, I think. Let's send the request, and again, internal error. Prawn, I wrote it wrong. So this will be my sessions, and over here, instead of from, I should be writing from send request and 200, and it gave me a session. Let's create a new session called second session, and then if I send the request, it creates another session. If I get it, now I have two sessions. So that's it. Like, we have our basic API done, which will create a session for us. What this API is doing, basically, we're trying to hit it. We're trying to give some sort of name over here. It is trying to return us with some sort of session ID. And I think like this works, like this is for creating a new session, this is for getting a new session. So these two things work. Now one way is we try to plug all of this in, because I guess that's the way to go. The other thing to the other way to go is basically within a session we'll need a new folder or new API, which will be like session ID, and inside a session ID we'll need a new folder again, which is like songs, and inside songs we'll need a new folder called route.ts. So basically for every song we need some endpoint, right? We can create our API, test it on HTTP, and then plug it with frontend, which is my desired way of doing any of these development, because once we have how the data is going to move, creating a wrapper on top of that is pretty easy. And since we have this .http file, we can just create everything over here, right? So we can start with songs, and we can see how our logic for this particular song will work, right? So again, our basic, actually what I can do is I can just start here, I can close this two, I can open one again, and then over here, let me just open my old session. I'll just take, oops, take over here, right here, let's go. So we got these three things. I am not sure if I'll be needing this or not, but the other two things I'll be needing. So constant, not constant, export async function, and then we'll create a post endpoint. So for song, we need couple of endpoints, right? One will be basically adding a new song, and then the other one will be removing a song. Like these two endpoint are what we need. And now there is one removal condition also. So every time after a song is removed, we can't add the song again for like 20 minutes. So we can just do constant song removal cooldown, that we can just do 20 into 5 into milliseconds. So 20, oh, not 5, sorry, 60. 20 into 60 into like 1000. So that gives us the millisecond number of times the particular song can't be removed. And then we start, oops, we start our method over here. But before starting that, we need the parameters, which we can go request as next request. And the other thing is context. So context is basically we getting something from our URL body or something like that. We can use something like import use params over here. And if we don't want to use that, we can just add something over here. Why did you go to a new line, man, when I so nicely asked you not to? Let me see where it is. Yeah. I hope this is visible to you guys, but anyways, what we need to do, yeah, params, which we can just do promise of session ID, and then print, and then we close our, yeah, now it is here. So params promise ID, and then we go there. So we get the particular session ID from this parameters, and let's just take it out. So constant of session ID, we can just get it from context dot parameters. We can get it out from there, and we can also get the session from our sessions dot get, and then we can just session ID. So over here, actually from libs dot session, over here we can use this to get our session ID, right? So that is there. If not session, if session is not found, we'll return our next response dot JSON, and we can just do error like we did, session is not found, and then we give a status of 400. Let me just close this two pages so that you guys can see this nicely. And there are some things that we do require from when we create a new song. So those things are like song ID, and then song name, or basically name, artist, album, image, and then user ID. So whoever user is trying to add it. With this we can get, actually what did I do? Yeah, await request dot JSON. I can just, we'll be sending them as part of the JSON, and we can just see that. If any of those things is not found, if song ID is not there, or name is not there, or artist is not there, or album image is not there, or user ID is not there, we can just return our next response. Actually not this, return next response dot JSON, and then we can just give it 1 second. We can just give it error, missing required fields, and over here we can just give it a status of 400. Right, so that is there. And then now what do we want to do next? So we got our session ID, we got our session. Now in that session we need to add a new song. We got the details of songs. Now you need to check if the song was recently removed or not. So check if the song was, I'll just scroll it up, recently removed. So we need to check it there. So instead constant recently removed, and we can just do session dot inside a particular session, inside recently removed dot find, and then we can just get removed, and then we can just do over here actually removed, and then removed dot id is equals to song id, and date dot now minus remove that dot get time is if that is less than the song cooldown. In that case we have the recently removed song. So if recently removed, so we again send a basically time left reminder. So constantly time left, this should be song removal cooldown minus date dot now minus recently removed dot remove that dot get time. So we get the time from here, and we can just do return next response dot json, and actually we can just do this, and we can just do error and then tilde mark, so that I can just say cool song is on cooldown, can be added in time left. Actually time left, actually I'll create minutes left, because I think time left will come in actually let's see it later. So in whichever way it will be coming, we can just see it later. And then status I can give 400 over here. There is some linting error, so I think I need this, and then I need this. Okay, this is fine. So we gave it a error code in case if the song is on cooldown. Now what do we need to do? We need to, we are seeing, so we got the session, we got the song id, we checked if the song was recently removed, check if it already exists. So check if the song already exists, right? So that's one thing that we need to check. Constant existing song, and then we can just do session dot songs, I think, yeah, find, and then within find we can just take a song which has a song dot id equals to song id, right? Triple equals. So if existing song, in that case we return again next response dot json, actually here error song with the song id already exists, and over here I give it status as 400 again. So these are pretty much all the cases if the song is already there, and if it is not, then it is a new song, and we create by song id, name, artist, album image, and then votes can go 0, and then we can go added by as user id, and then we can go added at as new date, and then we need to set it. So session dot songs dot, I think, push new song, and we can just return next response dot json. What do we respond? Song is new song. Let's try this out in our http call. So let's open up our slash http file. Let's create a new route which can be post, and then http. Let's get the list of sessions. Sorry. Let's do for this session ID. So http localhost. Actually, let me just close this one. 3000 slash API session. This is sessions. Actually sessions, and then ID. then slash song. I hope it is with S. Yeah, songs. So within this songs, what happened? Yeah, within the songs, I'll do content type of application.json. Then I'll create what all fields does it require. See, it requires a song ID, so I can give it song ID as my new song, right? I can give it name as Rahul song. I can give it artist as my name. I can give any gibberish as well, but I just need to make sure that it is right. HTTP google.com because it's gonna be an image, and then user ID. Let's give it something 1 2 3 4, right? Because we just want to try it out. These are all the things which is required. Let's send the request, and 404 not found because I think it is giving issue with the session. Let's get the sessions again. This will be here. Let's close it out. Let's give it here. Okay, and let's send the request. 404 not found. Let me see the endpoint. Uh, why is it adding? Oh, 1 second. Why is it adding it twice? I think we have a localhost API added again, which should not be there. That is happening just because of this small screen that I'm working on. 500 chunking error, which is recently removed dot find. Let me just check it out once. Let me close these two. Recently removed dot find session dot recently removed should be there. Oh, removed songs. Sorry. Let me just open here only. Let me open HTTP here only and let me just send the request out. Yeah. Okay, so this endpoint works. It's giving me 200 response. I got a new song added. Let me get all the sessions and see song count is 1 now for this session. So this endpoint works. Let's quickly make one more API route, which is to remove the song. So removing the song should be pretty easy. We just need to add it into a couple of tables. Export async function delete. The same cadence. Request coming from next request, context coming from, actually I can just copy it out from here, context coming from here. hmm. Right, so and me taking it to the next level. Okay, what all do we need again? Let me try copying some things from here because these two we need. Yep, these things we would need. So we would need the session ID, we would need the session. If session is not there, we return the session. And then when we want to delete, we get it from the search params, which will come as, so basically in the context parameters, we want to get, oh sorry, in the request parameters, we want to get a URL which will give us the song to delete, right? So that particular song, which that URL should be having like song ID as a parameter. So we go and we create new URL. So I'll actually tell you first. So how the delete API should be there is basically HTTPS. Actually, I'll just copy all of this. And instead of post, it should be delete songs. And then over here in the query parameters, let me just close out this one. Query parameters will have song ID equals to the ID of that particular song that we just created. And that is how the delete API should be. So inside here in the search param, we'll create a new URL out of request.url. So basically we'll get the URL from there. And inside this, we'll get a song ID by checking the search params and getting this key named song ID. So this song ID over here, whatever key it will create or have, we'll have it, where's that gone? We'll have it over here. Now, once we get the song ID, so we just need to check if song ID is not there, then we would return the next response dot JSON, and again the same thing, error, song ID with not found. I just don't wanna, and then status is gonna be 400, right? Then constant song index, because we want to find this particular song index from session dot songs dot find index, and then song, and where song of id dot id equals to song id. So this will give us the song index. If song index is -1, that means return next response again, that we didn't find the song in the list, error, song is already deleted. Well, basically this means that the song is deleted or the API request is a duplicate or something. So basically either it is deleted or not found. Anyone would work, right? So this is done for song index. Now what we need to do, if we find the song, then we go to session dot song dot splice. Splice basically takes and removes one element after that index, and we also go to remove songs and push this particular element, song id, I think, id is song id, and removed at would be new date actually not this. So we removed that song from the songs list. We added that into the removed songs, and there is one more thing that we need to do here is clean up any old songs present. So basically any song which were in the cooldown, or like someone wanted to add, we want to remove those. So session dot remove songs dot is equals to session dot removed songs dot filter, and inside the filter we'll do removed, and we'll check if date dot now minus removed dot remove at dot get time. If this is less than song counter, then we basically want to give it, and next response dot json success. So with this we are done with the song API routes. Let's send out the request over here. Recently removed. Is it back? This error. I just solved this error. Oh, this should be recent. What's the error? Session dot recently removed dot find. This I changed. Why is it still there? Oh, oh, my bad, my bad. We need to separate this out with this. Now it is working. So this particular song has a ID of my new songs. I can go up here. I can just put this ID to check if please work. Song is already deleted or not found. Song ID already exists. Song ID, let's give it 123 and send out the request. ID is 123. Let's give it here 123 and let's send out the request. Song is already deleted or not found. So with this particular song ID, it's not able to find. Yeah, so last time we were having this issue that the song ID and this delete was giving us 400. Actually, the issue was pretty simple, which was like if I open up the HTTP file, I was using quotations over here, and if I do without that, so it's like gonna give me. So let's just check for the sessions. So let's get the sessions which are there. So we have this session over here, which has 0 songs right now. Let's put a song inside it. So now we added a song with ID 123. So now the song with ID 123 should be there, which is here. So if I click send request, it says success and true. So basically now it works. Earlier it was giving that issue because of, I mean, like we were using that quotes around the song ID. Anyways, our song API is done. So we have done the delete and we have also done the post. Now the second thing is what we want to do is inside a session we'll have a new thing which is gonna be what. And for what also we'll need a file known as route.ts, because we either need like a route for songs to like increase and decrease, like add a song and delete a song. For every vote also we need to add a vote and somehow remove a vote as well, but remove a vote won't be an option right now, so we'll just have a option of adding a vote. So for that, again, like importing next request, next response from next slash server. And one thing that we always have to import is sessions from at the rate library and then sessions. So these two things are always there. Export async function and post. So see, now the way we'll do this is basically we'll need a request, which is gonna be next request, and then we'll need our context, which is gonna be params, and then which is promise of uh bracket, and we close it, session id and string. For every session id we'll need like a context variable, right? So we got this. Now we come up here. So again, like we'll get session id. Obviously we have declared it over here in the parameters, so we'll get it. So await context dot params. Then from the session id we'll get the session, because we'll have sessions dot get session id. Now the session, I hope you know that this is coming from this global session over here. So session id, so we got our session as well, right? And again, like if I try opening songs, if I open this, like let's copy up the same thing. Session is not there, then we return session not found, right? And for every vote we need a couple of things. So we'll need song id, and then we'll need user id as well. So this will get from request dot json. So from the request parameter we'll get the song id and request id, and if not song id or not user id, in that case we'll just have to return next response and json, and then we'll write over here, actually over here, which will have error as song id and user id are required, and then over here we can give it status of 200, right? So if these two things are not there, we can return that, right? Constant of user last vote. So basically we got a user id, so in the session, and then votes, user votes dot get, and then user id. So we'll get all the votes from the user over here. If user last vote, if user has made a couple of different votes, we'll get time last time since last vote is equals to date dot now minus and user last vote dot last vote time dot get time, because we have last vote time as a variable inside. If I open this section, we have last vote time as a variable, so we'll check that variable over here. right? So constant of last vote time, and if time since last vote is greater than or basically less than, we need a vote cooldown. So let's do this, and then let's wait 1 second. Let me just copy this up till here, Control C, and over here constant vote cooldown. Let's make it 5 into and into 60 also. So this will be 5 into 60 into like 100, which means like it will be 5. That's why is the prettier crying. Oh, it completed. Never mind. So if that is less than last cooldown, so like constant time left, we can do vote cooldown minus time since last vote. So that we can do, and then we can convert it into minutes left by doing math dot feeling of time left divided by bracket 60 multiplied by. So this is basically gonna be 1 minute, and then time left is gonna come in seconds. So we convert that into minutes left and return next response. Obviously dot JSON, and error can come up here, and you can get or basically you can vote again in time left, the minutes left. You can vote again in minutes left, and I can just put minutes, right? And then the status can be now, right? So there we go. We have, if user has voted within 5 minutes, we can't give it another vote. So we have made sure of that. If not, then we'll just get the song, which is session dot songs dot find, and like song, and then song dot id equals to uh, song id, which we got from there. So this will be our song, and then let me just scroll it up so that you guys can see it better. So this is gonna be the song id. And 1 second, there is one more thing, which is if song is not found, actually I'll just write it down only. If not found, then return next. A lot of times we just have to take care of the return statement so that we know that there is an error. Song not found. Wherever you see that there can be an error statement, you just have to write one. I know it takes a lot of time to write whole messages. Maybe we could shorten it up, but that is like the cadence of it, right? Now if user has, like if user's last vote was on a different song or something, and if user does not have his last vote or his all in like his vote on this song, we'll basically let him vote. That is our thing, right? So if user has voted for a different song, we need to remove that vote, and we need to vote it here. So like in the list, if user has already voted for some other song, so we don't want user to have couple of votes. So we'll remove that vote, and we'll add on this one, right? So if user last vote is there, and user last vote dot song id is not equal to song id which we have right now, in that case, so we'll do our previous song as session dot song dot songs dot find, and inside find we'll just do song, where song dot id is equals to user last vote dot song id, right? Basically the song id of user's last vote. Now what we have to make sure is that his previous vote is removed and his vote is cast on the new song. If previous song is there, that means previous song dot votes equals to math dot max 0 comma previous song dot votes minus 1. So either we remove one word from the previous song and we add it to the current song. Otherwise, if the previous song is removed from the list and all, we don't want to do like this. Right now, one last thing, which is like if all of the above things are done, we just need to add in the user's vote. So if user last vote, so basically if it's not user last vote, so basically if user did not last voted, and if user last vote dot song id is not equal to song id, In that case, we just need song dot votes plus equal 1. So that particular song, whichever we found, just need to increase it by 1. And the song is over here. Yes. Okay. Do we need to do anything else? We need to store it as well. Session dot user votes dot set. So user ID, and then we just do last vote time is new date. So it's right now, and then song ID can be song. Right, actually. And here I just need to do return next response dot JSON, and then this is success true true, and then new vote count is gonna be song dot votes, and next vote time is gonna be date dot now plus vote cooldown. So this is going to be our response, but the whole API is done. So basically, this is the voting API that we have created. We can sort of vote using this, and this is going to be the song API. Let's try out this one. We need song ID and user ID in session. So let's see. Let's go to our HTTP page. User ID is 1234. Let's create a new endpoint for post, and then I can just do the whole thing and remove this song ID over here, and I can just do vote. So in this session, the vote content type is going to be application.json, and then in the request it's supposed to have song ID and user ID. So you're voting for this song by this user, right? So we give it a song ID. Actually, we'll give it a song ID, which is let's just add this song first. So can't be added. Okay, so song ID can be 1234. Let's do this. Yeah, song is added. So song ID will give 1234, and then we'll give user ID as, again, like it's the same as 1234 here, but I guess we'll have to make do with it. So song ID, user ID. Let's try sending request. So it's giving 200. Next word count is this, and next word time is in this. If we try it again, it'll give us 400 because you can't vote. You can vote again in 5 minutes. So that's how it works. If user ID I change, if I put 5 and if I send request here, so the vote count is 2, and next voting time is this. So our vote API is done, our song API is done, and all of this is done almost. So the API section is pretty much done. What we need to do now is basically plug it up in this page section and in this page section. So this everything around here works smoothly. For this, what we want to do is, okay, let's see Excalibur once, how that's gonna work. So this is gonna be our home page, right? So this is gonna be our home page, and this is gonna be our session page, right? Whenever user comes and creates a session over here, he wants to initialize some variables like session ID. So there'll be a session ID he needs to initialize. He needs to initialize initial vote count as 0. He need to add basically one new session in that the global store that we are having, right? So what we need to do is whenever user clicks on this button, handle session, we do some prerequisites over here which will handle all of that details for us. So how that's gonna look like is basically we create a new method over here which says constant create session, and now this create session will take care of, and this is actually gonna be an async request, and this is gonna be taking care of all the things, right? So we have a session name over here, right? So the session name is, we'll check if session name is not null, and like it is not filled with empty spaces. If it is, then we'll just return. If it is not, we'll just carry on with our other thing, right? Now we do need some sort of loader and all also. So we can just say constant is session creating and set is session creating. So I think this use state, and then this can be boolean. Why is the issue coming? Use state, and then this is supposed to be boolean, and then initially I'll keep it false. I can just do set is session creating s2 over here, and we can like display some sort of loading symbol or something using this, right? So if a session is getting created, we ideally want to call down this API, which is to create the session, right? This one. So what we can do is over here, we can just try sending out this request, and we can and error, catch error, which we can log out later, but we can try out creating our session. So now that will be constant of response that we got from the session ID will be await dot fetch, and then it is supposed to be API slash session, right? API slash sessions, because it's here, and sessions, yeah. Okay, in the method body, we gotta write post. We need to give it some sort of headers, which is gonna be a content type and application slash JSON. There's that, and we need to give it body also. So the body can be JSON dot stringify, and then we can just give it name, and that is gonna be session name, which we got from there, right? Okay. So now the response will be coming. We got the body, and we can get it response also. So if response dot okay, if it is not if response is not okay, we'll just do constant error data is equals to await response dot json, and then we can just alert error data dot error, or we can just do fail to create session, right? And then we can just return from here. So that is if response is not okay. If response is okay, then we get the session ID from the response.json. So we'll use that response.json, get the session ID from for us, and that session ID is what we need. If session ID is there, then we do router dot push, and then the same thing, session slash dollar session ID, actually ID. This is basically this statement over here will replace this method from that method, and if this is not there, then we console log, and we do fail to create session with error, and we can just give error over here, and then we can console.log, and I think, yeah, and catch error, we can just put console, like this error won't be here actually. This we can just console load fail to log session, because here error is not there. We can just console log here, console log here fail to create session with error. Now here I can put error because now error is there. There's one thing missing, which is like after we have created all of that, we can just do finally, and then we can just do set is on creating as false. If there is like this sessions or something, we can use that. And yeah, pretty much here button click, I'll do, instead of handle session, this I'll remove. I'll use this method, which is like create session over here. create session. It should be ideally creating the session for us. Let's try it out here. Let's go to localhost 3000 and come on. Let's do 123. Bam. Yep. The whole flow works. So with that is a good part. If I show you, yep, 200, it compiled also and it moved also. So that is right. We'll ask Copilot to like make it better and use all of this to get the screen. Basically, I do have Copilot's created element, but yep, that's there. So this is the response, and then in this page we need to plug in the voting details and all. So that is gonna be here. So for that, see, if we wanna plug in the voting condition, which is like in this page we want to have votes and whatnot, we need to get those here and we need to keep fetching that again and again here. So even if I separate these logic, so let's say this comes on later and the display part comes on later, every time we are on this page we want to continuously fetch the data, right? So for that there is this simple thing which is use effect, and this use effect is very important. So because this is gonna give you, so every 5 seconds, let's say we are gonna keep fetching, or whenever you get a session ID, we are gonna keep fetching use effect. So we can get import use effect from React. So we got use effect from React. Also we'll need use state also. So I'll just import it right here. Use state. So now use effect is basically whenever your page will render and whenever your session ID is gonna change, it is gonna keep fetching these things, right? So under use effect, we are gonna constant fetch data, and then I'm gonna create a async function because I wanna call it back again and again. Try, and then constant response is equals to await fetch, and then slash API slash sessions slash dollar session ID. So for each session ID, we'll keep fetching it out again and again. If not response dot okay, then we throw a new error saying session not found. And if response is okay, we get the data as await response dot json, and over here set, actually let's create a new variable like I said, constant of session data comma set session data equals to use state, and then the variable will be session data, and then initially it will be nothing, but we need to create this session data here, session data, and this session data will be same to the variable that we created over here, sessions, yeah. So this session data is going to be same to this, which will have a id string. Basically I can even copy it out from here, id created, and boom, bam, and then songs will be empty array, and then user votes will be new new record of string, and then last vote time of date of string, and then song id the string. Then we can close it out here like this. There is some error, string session data id string name string, oh my bad. Record songs is gonna be, oh, songs is not empty array, it is array of songs and then user vote. So this is gonna be the session data for us. I hope I didn't make any issue. Session data, yeah, this sounds good. id name created date songs and this, and I need a interface again, which will be song, because I'm using the song here. So there'll be interface here. So id string, name string, and whatnot we were having in song. 1 second. Session song id, name, artist string, album image string. That's it, I think. Votes. I think it will be the whole thing. I'll just copy it out here. Right, so id, name, artist, image, album image, votes, added by. So all these things are here and session data is here. This data will be same as session data, so I can just set out this. So session data will be set here, and I can create a new um, error, must set error, and new use state. If there is some error, we do null over here. If there is no error, if there is error over here, we do set error as error. Actually, this error should be error class. So the set error would be error class most probably. Or we can just do make it string or null. So that is there as well. So we can initialize it by null. So this error is null and we are initializing it by null. Okay. So in catch statement, we get error. So set error, error is instance instance of, if it is instance of error, then we go error dot message, or else we do fail to resolve, fail to load session. This is because we did set error type as string. So we need to see if error is type of error, then there'll be a error dot message which will store, otherwise we'll make it this one. Also, one more thing that we need to do over here is constant is loading, but is loading, and then use state, again boolean, and then initially it will be false. So when you fetch the data over here at the start, you do set as loading. After that, you probably don't. We do over here set is loading as true, and then over after catch in here finally we write set is loading as false. So this is the basic fetching of data. uh, okay, and this is the fetch data method, but in use effect we want to call it out here every time. And also, like, we want to define a interval, because we will set interval and then fetch data comma 5000, and then return clear interval. So every 5 seconds we want to fetch the data again and again, because we just want to keep our app in the most updated form if someone has voted. So polling based method. So basically poll for new data every 5 seconds. I think this is gonna be the front end sort of. Okay, so what else will we be needing here? So this is basically the session information that came. What about song information? So constant handle song added. So if song is added, how can we know if a song is added? We can just fetch session data, and we'll know if a song is added, right? Constant handle vote added. How would we know if a vote was added? And for, like, let's say I make it async, and this was song id, and string. How to get if a vote was added for this. We'll again get the session data and like check if that particular session has a vote added or not. Like all this is connected with fetch session data. So let's write this method of fetching session data, right? Also, there is one more thing that we need to always keep, which is like user ID, because that is important. So we can just use a state and it can dynamically derive the value whenever the function starts. So if type of window is not equal to undefined, if it is not equal to undefined, that means there is going to be some user data there. So id is going to be local storage get item, and then we are going to get user id from here. So basically in the first try we are trying to get the user id from the local system. If we don't get it, import b4 as uuid from uuid, right? If we don't get this, if not id, uh, if not id, in that case, basically if the id is not found, in that case id is equals to uuid, and we'll create a new id and local storage dot set item and then user id, and then it can have this id. So for every session we'll check if the id is there in the local cache or not. If it is not, then we'll create one id, and at the end we'll just return the id. And if the whole thing is not working, so we'll just return a new id from here without storing it, right? If basically the type of window is undefined, in that case we'll return the id here, because we don't want to keep this value as null, because we do require it over here. So back to constant of fetch session data, async and then brackets, and then we go over here again our classic try catch with error. Over here in try we write constant of response equals to await fetch api slash sessions slash dollars session id, right? Fetch if not, the classic thing which we did here, we'll do it again here, because that is every 5 seconds or something, and this is whenever you load the, basically whenever there is some bot or something, when someone clicks on a bot, adds a new song, in that case we want to dynamically, we don't want to wait 5 seconds after we have added the song to see the song. We just want to do that instantly. So this is for that. So catch error would be the same thing over here, and is loading is false is going to be here also. So finally uh, is loading false over here. So fetch session data works, use effect works, handle song data works, and handle vote is left. So for handle vote we'll need user id as well. So again try and catch over here with error. Let's see, in try we can just do constant response equals to await fetch and api sessions dollar session id and then slash vote. And here I just want to make a post method post headers content content type as application json, right? And the body would be uh, json dot stringify. We'll do song id and then user id. So that's where the user id comes in handy, because we want to send it over here again, like here data dot response get the data and response. So if response is not okay, session what not found, data is not there, so we get the data out and then we just send out fetch session data. So for every vote, we just want to call it back again. So there we go. Actually, this data was not as such required, but then we like again got it. We just wanted to add the vote, so I can just remove it. That session data is gonna like handle all of that, and if error is there, so I can just console log for now. Console log fail to vote for song ID. Song ID. That's it. ID. Let's print out the error as well, right? So this can be there, and one more method that we need to create. This is vote added, song added, and there should be one constant of handle remove vote. Gonna be the same case, async. Again, same case. We just have to call this API try catch. I'll just copy on the whole thing. Copy on the whole thing inside of the vote. Actually, remove vote. Actually, not remove vote. Remove song. My bad. Session song, and then we can just do song and song ID equals to dollar and then song ID over here. So this is gonna do a song, and we the method is gonna be delete. I'll just remove this from here and this from here. So session ID songs song ID delete song not found. It'll itself do session ID and then fail to remove song with ID. There we go. So removal of song, actually we'll need a song ID from here. So song ID and then string. Yeah, you give it a song ID, it'll return you after removal of song ID. Session ID is over here that we are getting. Yeah, probably everything works fine. Just one extra bracket which I removed. Yeah, all the methods are fine. We just need to plug them. Now comes the place where like we have to write our front end. So for the front end, we'll start with the main dev, but before that, we'll actually start with if loading or if it is loading or not. So there's this blog that I created from GPT. You guys can copy it up, pause it for a while and copy it up. I'm not gonna be going into front end because that's quite boring. So this is what Copilot generated me. So if it is loading, then this. If there is error, then the block is this. So basically this button will take you to the home. Basically it will change your windows dot location as slash. And otherwise if there's one more if, which is like if session data is null, return null and do nothing. The final return statement is gonna have a couple of components that we'll create. So now we have library, we need some React components. We'll create a new folder over here. We'll write the name as components. And these components are session info, song list, and so it has to be session info.tsx. Then we need to create some song list.tsx, and then we'll need to create Spotify search.tsx, right? Because we want to search also there's going to be one more API to search that we'll talk about in a while. So session info is actually we'll fit all of this later, I guess. Let me see this page first. Yeah, I think it is giving me some error because I have some duplicacy in page.tsx. Page.tsx was giving me some error up here. One second. It's giving me response is defined multiple times, 46 line. 46. Yeah, I called it a couple of times, so this should be good. Come on, what's the error? Expected after variable declaration. Where is this error now? Oh, my bad. So the error is basically due to this. Now it should be good. Let me just see. Refresh the page. Yep. Now it all works. So I can click on any and I can then try to launch the session and it will go back home. Yeah. So the stuff works. We just need to create some more components and then we need to add the API for Spotify because we're going to search Spotify. Let me just get the list. We won't be able to see these things in action until I add that API. So why not I just add the API and then we can go about from there. So in API, I need to add a new folder which will be Spotify. And inside Spotify, I need to add a new file called route.tx so that I can just write a route for here. I need to import again next request, next response from next server, and then post this. Let me just close this. I need to define client ID, which will come from my process.env.spotify client ID, and then constant of client secret is equals to process.env.spotify client secret. Now, how do you get both of these values and where do you store them? So basically, if you ever want to store your environment variable somewhere, just create a .env file and whatever name we gave it here. Let me just open that out here. Let me just copy this one here and this one's gonna be here. So whatever my API IDs are going to be, I'll put it over here and that will be taken up as an environment variable. Now, how do I get it? I can just go to Spotify API, which will take me to my developers API. What you have to do is basically you have to log in here. And actually, I have this open in my other browser. So let me get it from there. Yep. So I'm logged in with my ID. I can just go onto my dashboard. This is an app that I've created. If you haven't created an app, create a new app, give it some description. You need some redirect URL so you can add localhost right now. So http/localhost 3000 for now. And if it is asking you for secure one, you can just add HTTPS. This will be taken care later, like give it a name and a description, which won't matter. So once you come up here, this is your client ID. And see, I've also like added the same redirect URL. So this is a little different than what I told you, but like obviously you can write any URL. And then if I click here, it will give me my secret. So you need to copy this up and you need to put it up here, and similarly for the secret. So that's how your like .env file will get populated. And actually this key should be this, sorry, and the value, sorry, and the value should be this, because we are getting this environment variable. And make sure to not have the spaces. I think even with the spaces it is fine. So you can just populate this here and I'll populate it, don't worry. After, like, I'll try to hide it and then populate it. So over here, so now the way the API works, I can show you a little. How the search works is basically you can search for any type over here. So we'll generally be searching for a song or track, as Spotify calls it. And the API is basically api.spotify.com v1/search. And in the query, you give the title, whichever you want to search for. So that's going to be here. And you need to get an access token, which you'll send it in the header. So that you can see that here, concepts access token. And yeah, you need to give authorization bearer and then your bearer token over here. So to get the access token, you need a different method, which can be, I request an access token. It'll give you like how to get the access token by sending your client credentials, client ID, and client secret. So you can go through the documentation once, or you can follow what I'm telling you. So access token, and this will be string or null, and we'll initialize it in the beginning as null, and then token expiry, so that if the token ever expires, we are there to generate a new one. That's there. Now let's create a async function, get access token, and this will be type promise of string, and then the way it will return is if access token is null. So basically, if access token is there or date dot now is less than token expiry, we'll just return the access token. Basically, if the token is still valid, we just return it. And if it is not, then if client ID is not there or client secret is not there, then we return access. Oh wait, we throw a new error. So throw new error saying client ID or secret not valid. So that's going to be there. And now the main logic of getting a new token in case we are not there. So how we'll get is a new API call, await fetch, and the endpoint we can get from here. This is the endpoint that we need to send request to. So we can just send it to this one. And the method, again, we can check over here. It is a post method. So method, we can give it post, and then header, we need actually headers. We need content type as application slash x www form URL encoded, and then authorization, we'll give it basic authorization, and this is gonna be buffer dot from, and from we get uh, inside from we get our client ID, and then client ID, and then we give it client secret. So client ID, client secret, we give it like this, and after we have given it, we convert it to string. And that's it. I think base 64, because this will be a URL encoded. So we convert it to base 64, and that's the header that we post. So we give it client ID, client secret, and then we create a bearer token out of it, and the body will be grant type. And basically we need to tell the API that the body type will be client credentials, right? So that's what we will do here. This is gonna be here, and if not response dot okay, then we throw new error, API config not right. You can maybe configure this error on your own, and then you get constant data equals to await response.json. You get the data from there. So access token will be data.access and then token, and then token expiry is gonna be date.now, and then date dot data dot expires in minus, we'll keep some buffer time and then multiply it by milliseconds, so 1000, and that's it. And then we return the access token at the, not this, return access token. Yep. And in case we get an error, we come up here, we console log error in getting access token for Spotify, Spotify, and this error we can just print out here, right? Yeah, so that's gonna be our first method of getting the access token. Now this method is not used anywhere, so we'll create another method which will be async and function search tracks, and query will be a string, and then the return type will again be promise string, and then actually promise of, because the track is gonna have a data type of song, so we don't want to create that data type again here. So I'm just gonna put any over here, but you can totally create an interface song over here, or you can create a types.tsx file and then export types out from there, but that's just gonna be my way here. So try constant token is gonna be get access token, and then that's it. We'll get token over here. Hopefully the import is done. Constant response is await fetch, and the API was somewhat like, let me just see, search for an item. The API was this. Just take this API, http api.spotify.com v1 search, and in the query parameter you'll have a dollar and then encode URI component, and then within it it will be query, and I guess and type equals to track, and we'll give it limit of 20, and market we're just gonna keep US for now. So this is gonna be the whole API. So encoded query, so that we remove all the apostrophes and everything from that and just make the query URL encoded, and then we give it type equals to track and limit. Okay, so this is gonna be nice, and then this is yeah, and since this is gonna be get API only, we just need to take care of authorization, which will be bearer, and then dollar mark, and then access token in our case, because we defined it over there as token. Yep, so headers and then constant response. That's pretty much it, and this should be good. And we can just check if not response dot okay, we throw new error in which we say fail to get tracks from Spotify, right? And over here constant data equals to response dot data, it JSON of the data, and here we have to return data dot tracks dot items dot map, and then for our new track with data type of any, we'll just export it out as object. So we'll export this out as an object. So return data dot tracks, wait, return it out as object of id is track dot id, and name is gonna be track dot name, then artist is gonna be track dot artist, and the first one of it dot name, or we can just write unknown, and then for album we're gonna have track dot album dot name, and then album image is gonna be track dot album dot images dot zero, and if zero is there then we'll take the URL, or we can just take placeholder album. So this can be our default image or something that we can always keep in our, I guess, local storage, and then we can just do this. Preview URL can be track.preview URL, and then external URL can be, although we don't need this, Spotify, although we don't need the last two, but that's fine. And then durations, millisecond can be track dot duration. So we can keep it, although we don't need the last three properties. It's up to you. If you guys want it, just keep it. Otherwise, yeah, up to you. So we have a try block. We'll open up a scratch block. So new error. Actually, console log got error while watching the song, and we're gonna write here error, and that's it. I think that's good. That's good. This any is not supported. Expected any. Specify any different type. Why not? I can just. I hope this does not cause me issue. So track is of any. I think it will be fine. Now I need to get an API across it, so I can just export a get API from here. So export async function get, and that can have a request with next request, and constant search params can be equal to new URL request dot URL. That constant query can be search params dot get and then q out of that. So we got the query. If no query, then that means we are searching for empty. So we can just return next response dot JSON, and we can just give it an error that query params are required. You can make the error better the way you want to. Status can be 400, 4000, crazy. If no, again, if no client ID or no client secret. So here's the thing, like if client ID and client secrets are not there, we can create a dummy or mock list. This is something that I have created over here. So instead of returning the actual thing, we can like return a mock sort of thing. So this is what I've created. You guys can maybe stop it and copy it out. So this is a sort of mock list. So I am not planning to put my secret up here, but since we'll have to try it out, it'll return me a mock result over here. So that's why this is there. You, if you guys want to put it, that's up to you. If you guys don't want to put it, that's also up to you. The actual will be constant of filtered result, and this will be filtered result. That will be actually actually this is not total. Actually this whole thing is gonna be the filtered result if API is not found, which is up till here. Yeah, if the API is found, then we do a try and catch, and we basically need to invoke the the actual API. So throw error. I'm not gonna console log now again. So constant track equals to await get search tracks, and then I'll give it the query. What's the name of query? Is query. So I'll give it query, and it's gonna give me back the track. So I'll just return next response and JSON, and then in that I can just give it the tracks. That's it. I think the Spotify API should be good. We created some mocks. We created some actual results. There's just one error, which is this any type. I'm not sure why it is coming, but we'll see if there is an error. We'll try to solve it. But for now, I think this is good. Spotify is done, sessions is done. Let's create these components and let's plug everything in. I think that should be good. So let's start with session info. And since it is gonna be client, so use client because it is gonna be a client component. So, and also we just need to use state here. So from React and interface session data, because it is session info. Let me open up session info was in page over here. So session data over here. Let's take this and replace it with this, and user votes we won't be needing. So this is a local session data over here, and we can just start by export default function and then session info and session data. It will take a session data as a parameter, session ID, and vote cooldown time. So what these parameters are, when we'll try to invoke it, we'll try to invoke it like this, session info, and we need to give session data inside it. So that's how it will become a tag. So we can convert our element to a tag, and these are the props. So these elements are called props, and that's how, like, these are those elements. But once we write it over here, we also need to specify the return type. So session info prop. So we can just do interface session info props, and then that can have session data as string, session ID as string, and then vote cooldown time as number. So this is what the data will look like. It can be null also if there are no votes, right? And session data can be session data, the one that I created just over here. And since I have given like I've created this element, now I can just start with the code. So constant, and we'll just check. um, so we have opened a session. Now we'll get a session URL, right? So we need to get that session URL somewhere. So that is going to be session URL, and set, actually the word is not nice, constant of copied, uh, and then set copied. That we can do, or we can keep session URL if you want to make that over there. And constant of share URL, we can get dollar, where's dollar gone, dollar window dot length location dot origin, and then we can do session slash and then dollar with session ID. So this will be the URL for any session. So location origin and then session ID. So that's what we're gonna keep, and then constant and copy to clipboard will be async of async try await navigator dot clipboard dot write text, and then share URL. So at any point that clipboard will have this, and we can do a set copied as true whenever you click on that, and you will keep it copied for that amount of time. And then we can just have set timeout, and we can say set copied as false after 2 milliseconds, right? And if there is any error, we can just do constant text area to document dot create element by text area, and we can text area dot, nope, nope, area dot value can be share URL, and document dot append child actually document dot body dot append child, and we can just append this text area in the whole body, and then text area dot select, and document dot exact command. This exact command basically executes this copy command with that whatever the content is on text area. Document dot body dot remove child, and then text area. So it will create that element, copy up the value, and then set timeout copied as false in like 2 seconds. Okay, I think that's good. So either we'll try to set copied as true, and if it is fallback, then we'll use this method to copy up the element. Now, there are a couple of methods and CSS which I'll just copy on from here and I'll explain that to you guys. So basically these are certain methods which are copied. So basically the method is format of date. So whatever date we'll be using over here, we're gonna like store that date. And this is a card that will create flex. You guys can copy it or from the GitHub repository. Like I'm not getting much into front end. I have like I created this project and I explained the APIs and all, but the front end portion of it I created using Copilot. I didn't want to spend much time onto it. I'm not that good at it. So session data dot name, like it'll show it here. Maybe you can spend some time. It's basic Tailwind and created format date and whatnot. Like that's what it does, right? I can explain you song list also, but purely these things are created by GPT and that's what it is. So I'll try to save your time as well and I'll try to copy on the whole page which I got over here and explain you. See, we have use state, use effect, the React hooks that we have, song data over here, song list prop, on vote, on remove. These are methods which should be used. And then we have user ID to know which user added this particular song. User votes, basically counting the number of votes that particular item has. Cooldown time, it's pretty basic, right? Song list, we give a set of props and we specify the props element over here or the interface over here. Cooldown display time, set cooldown display, like this actually makes sure that you display that cooldown onto the user interface. Use effect, if cooldown display is not there and cooldown display time is less, then you set it down to 0. Again, it will refresh again every second to make sure that the cooldown time gets updated. So update cooldown is basically vote cooldown dot date dot now minus date dot now. So these are all algorithm. You can spend like a little bit of time in this and you'll know how we're getting the time. And this is basically just setting UI. Maybe try tweaking down a couple of elements, like add a couple of constant strings over here and see how it takes effect. And then you have user last vote, you get the last vote of that particular user, and then there are some cards and it displays, so you can vote next vote in this much time. And you can like, I'll scroll down once and maybe you can copy down the code and you can maybe spend some time to understand it. If not, like try to stop it over here, understand it, tweak on it. I'll even paste the GitHub repository in the description, so if you want to use that, you can go with that, right? So this is the second method. I hope like you are able to copy or something. The third one will be Spotify search, and this one also has a long amount of files. So again, track info, Spotify props, Spotify search, you get song ID, user ID, on song added, which is this callback method. So basically, I'll explain this portion. This is basically when you want to pass a method down to a prop to some other component, you send this method called a callback method. Now on song added is a method which is declared in another class, which will be sent back to here so that it gets invoked whenever you click a certain element or something, right? So you implement something because the other element or the parent element is having the state, and you want a method written in parent element to be called anytime somebody clicks on a button or something. So in that case, you can send down a method as a prop to the child element, and this is what that is. A couple of like use states, and then again like fetching. This is basically our method which we created, right? Getting the API called for Spotify and all. Add songs is basically it'll fetch our songs API, and like this is the API that we created. API session song and then API slash Spotify. So API slash Spotify. This is our API, right? We get the data over here, and then there are a bunch of like again pure CSS. I'll push this code down to the GitHub. You guys can copy it from there. So this is that. And with these three things, we just have this page is almost complete. We just need to write a couple of CSS in this one, which I'll again, like I said, after doing all due considerations, I'll try to paste that down because that's not much of like my forte. One method that we missed was get votes cooldown, so that's gonna be this one. So this gets the cooldown time for any vote, which is like session data dot user votes user ID, and then last vote time it will take, and then cooldown time it will give you. So that's there, and the CSS, which is for the correct element, I'll just paste it down over here. You can just try it out in my GitHub repository, although this one is not big. Just try to paste it down. And these imports are remaining, so I need to import them as well. So the import will be this, right? So we have imported everything, and let me just see if there are some CSS file also which need to be there, but I don't think so there'll be. Let's just try on over here. Let me refresh it. I hope it works. Okay, it is not working. Maybe there are some components. Oh, this page is also left. I'll paste it down again. I'm sorry, I'm skipping the CSS part, but I really don't like it. So this is gonna be the CSS part, and yeah, I'll just scroll it down once. If you guys wanna type it along, you can go for that, or you can just copy this up from my GitHub repository. So I just don't like creating this. It takes a lot of time and it'll bore the hell out of you guys. So let me see. Is creating is not there. Let me see. Is creating is session creating. Control C and control find is creating. You can replace it here. You can replace it here. Is it gonna work? Yeah, it is gonna work now. This button is not working though. It is blocked, I know. Okay. So let's try it out. If I write 1, 2, 3, 4 and we create session, it is not creating because somehow it is failing. Let me see here. Server responded with a status 404. Why though? Okay, so one error that I found here was in this 45 page, which was to remove this added, and this would also still give me the same error. Okay, I guess I missed a route because whenever we create a session, we need to get information for that particular session. So I need to create one route here also. So this route will take care of getting the session, and this route is gonna have import next request, next response, and this route is basically gonna be responsible for getting a particular session out. So import sessions from again. This is gonna be a simple route, but yeah, I missed this one. So export async function get, and then this should be taking up the request as next request, and then context as params promise, and then session ID string. Yep, I think session ID of string should be within the braces. Yep, and over here constant session ID would come from context dot params, and then constant of session will come from sessions dot get of session ID, and this will get the session. If not session, then return next response JSON as error as session not found, and then status can be as 400, right? And then constant sorted songs can be session dot songs dot sort a comma b, and then this can be a b dot votes. Let us say dot votes. I think this is fine. So we'll get the sorted songs. So this will take care of sorting. So return Next.js and this can be over here. We can get the session information, song will be sorted songs, and then user watch can be object from entries. We get session dot user watch. I think this is the route, and if I refresh it, and if I write 1234, create the session, again it does not open. Let me inspect it once. It is responding with 500. Let me do one thing. Let me try it and see the error over here. Next request, not request, next response. My bad. Let's try it again. 1234, create. Yep, this time it is here. There are some URLs which are not there, and if I share session, it will copy this off. I'll fix this and oops, did I close it? Why is it not opening? Maybe because I've already having a session open. Okay, it is not opening the right URL. Let me just close it and check it over here. Session 4 and whatever it shares is also this. So maybe it's not able to give me the response twice. Or yeah. So this and this and what about this? So what's the difference? Oh, this one is giving me sessions. So there is one S wrong, which should be in here when I'm trying to copy down the songs. Yeah, this S should not be there. Let's refresh it. Let's refresh it and share, copy and paste. Yep. Now this link is fixed. Let's see if I can search it here. If I do this, if I search it, uh, 3 and search. Okay. This might be because I don't have the correct key over here. Let me try and put the correct key. Give me a second. Okay, so I pasted the key. Let's see if I can get ABC. No result. Let me inspect the element. Let me just try to search it over here. Uh, why is it refreshing again and again? I know why. Because every 5 seconds it is trying to search for something and it is going loading again and again. I think we need to fix something. Okay, so from here what we need to fix is remove this. I think that should be, yeah, this works. Now the moment we remove that, it's not loading again. So if I search for ABC now, it's not giving me error, but let's see the network call to see if that even went or not. Let's try to do ABC search again. Network log is not coming apparently. Oh, that's because it is hidden. How do I scroll it down over here? Yeah, so let's do ABC and search it down. Spotify fetch, it's giving me empty error. Let's check out the Spotify API and see here. Am I returning something wrong? JSON tracks. Let me just console log this out. tracks. Let's see this. Let's see the console. It is saying new error, failed to get tracks. Okay, response is not okay over here. Just a second. So response is not okay over here. So it's not able to get the tracks because the token, it's not able to get the token probably. Let me get the error as well. Fail to get the tracks, and let me get the error as well. Or response dot status. Let me get this and let's try searching it again. Because we got new error. So the error might be that I have not written await over here. Let's refresh it again. Let's try A, B, C, D, anything. Search. Nope. Network call. If I go back here, data.track.items. Finally, I have some lead. Data.track.items. This should be right. Let me try refreshing and searching it again. Does return data.tracks.items. Okay, another error which I did was no, not putting await over here. Let's try it once more. Let's see what the error is this time. Artist 0. Okay, here. This will have a S over here. Let's search it again. Finally, I got the results. So anyways, the app is complete, sort of. I get the results over here and you can, let's try adding functionality. If I add it, I get it over here. I can vote it. The next vote is in some time. We can make it visually better. I'll deploy the code. I'll tell you how to deploy the code. So I had some files. I can bring on those files over here. Yeah, so over here I created this k8s folder. This has some deployment scripts in which you can maybe brainstorm, and this will take care of your deployment to Azure. I'm not covering it yet because Azure is not free, and a lot of you guys might not have credits and might not be able to deploy it. So not covering that over here, but if you want, I'll push this k8s folder down to GitHub so you can maybe use it. And like, if you want to learn how to deploy, just check out these YAMLs and that will be done. But for now, yeah, this is the whole app. And if you like the video, please do comment, subscribe, share, and whatnot. I'll try to edit it and post it as soon as possible. So thank you for watching, guys.